So we have seen in the first three verses, which are the prelude to Srimad Bhagavatam, how Srila Vyasadeva introduces the Vastu Nirdesh. What is the first verse? It is defining the object of this Grantha. What are we going to approach, understand, discover? Satyam Param. And who is that Param Satya? The cause of all causes, the independent, all cognizant Lord Vasudeva. Then verse 2 goes on to define the glories of Srimad Bhagavatam. How Bhagavatam is the mature fruit of all Vedic knowledge. It is an explanation of the Gayatri Mantra, which in itself is the essence of all Vedas. Yeah, so it is the essence of all the scriptures. And also, the second verse very clearly defines what is Bhagavad Dharma and what are we going to reject right at the outset, which is Kaitav Dharma. And the third verse presented the rasa understanding of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So we saw how Srimad Bhagavatam harmonizes both Vedanta and rasa, bhakti and Vedanta. So this is the natural commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. This is the Vaishnava's way to approach Vedanta. And for anyone who would like to understand God philosophically, scripturally, this is the method for them. So far, we have tried to understand, some important concepts. It's good to revise them. That by understanding what is the Param Satyam, we are able to overcome the illusion. What we consider reality today is this material existence. But when we awaken to the ultimate reality, the absolute truth, we will be able to see that this is only relative. This material existence is not permanent. This material world is only temporary real. It is not permanently real like the spiritual world. Yeah, we discussed this in detail. And how through the practice of hearing and chanting, we are able to reach a stage of purification when we realize I'm not this body, I'm the soul. How is that possible? Through the Vidya, which is a part of Prakriti. You remember what did we discuss? Krishna's external potency covers Prakriti, Vidya, and Avidya. So that same external potency has a component of Vidya, which allows us to achieve self-realization. And we realize that how my ahankar is making me misidentify with the body and mind, which I have nothing to do with. So it is that conditioning and delusion about this relative reality that we have to overcome. And we discussed an important concept of Achintya Bhed Abhed, how Krishna and Krishna's energy are different and non-different simultaneously. How is this possible? It's inconceivable. It's beyond our logic. So once we understand that, we are not creators, we are created. So if we are created, what is our natural constitutional position? To serve the creator, as simple as that. So this idea to become one with God, to enter the Brahma Jyoti of the God, that is when we try to define the absolute reality through our intelligence. These are some of the results we will achieve. We'll never be able to understand Bhagwan as he is. We'll only be able to maximum reach the concept of that there is some supreme power, Ishvara, or there is this unchanging reality, Brahman. So how are you defining that? By negating all qualities of that you encounter in this world. So ये material world में name and forms है तो Brahman में names and forms नहीं हो. So it's a definition by negation. By using our intelligence, we cannot define absolute truth positively. So the Advaitins who desire to merge in Brahman, they say that we can't actually discern whether Brahman or Prakriti is Sat or it is Asat. It is actually, they call it Anirvachaniya. It is indeterminate. We really cannot say. So we cannot become Brahman, please. You can become a drop in that Brahma Jyoti, but you don't become Brahman. That's a misconception. That is only a speculation. So the idea is we should not have those kind of aspirations for liberation, impersonal liberation. We should develop a strong faith. And through that strong faith or Dhrida Shraddha, how do we express that Dhrida Shraddha, or what is the symptom of Dhrida Shraddha we discussed? Sharanagati. We surrender to the Lord wholeheartedly. And once you surrender, then Krishna bestows his grace. So this is, the approach that we have seen. Yeah. Yes. Any question? Go ahead.
Sure. So, how does the concept of moksha look like for the soul in bhakti? If there is no so liberation of this journey, what does that look like? If it's not the merging back with the absolute, then what is the state that the bhakti yoga says that is the liberation?
Correct. I mean, very relevant question. So bhakti is not just of one kind. Moksha is not of one kind. It is of five types, and that merging into the existence of Lord, that is the most superficial of those five. It's called Sayujya Mukti. And then there are other fours which are more relational. There is Samipya. You achieve the proximity of the Lord. There is Salokya. You reach the same planet as the Lord. Sarshti, having the same potencies as the Lord. Yeah. And Sarupya, attaining the same features as the Lord. So in that liberated realm and the Vaikuntha Lokas, the devotees who reach this, attain that kind of liberation, they have same forms and they are all four-handed forms, Vishnu Murtis. So those are considered positive. Sayujya is considered neutral because it involves dissolving your identity. And Bhagavad Gita says that your individuality, your identity is eternal. Mamai Vamsho Jiva Bhute, the Jiva Bhutas are my parts, Mamai Eva Amsha. Mamai Vamsho Jiva Bhute, Sanatana, they are eternal. So if we are eternal, how can we merge? And if we were all one Brahman, how did we separate? Because Sri Krishna says in the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita that the spirit is indivisible, it cannot be cut. So, both things you cannot explain if you consider merging as amalgamation. So you become a drop in Brahman, but your individuality remains. So these are the other four types of liberation. A devotee doesn't, in fact, even desires these liberations because, as we discussed, you remember, a desire for liberation is also a subtle spiritual self interest. Why? Because you are seeking something, you are seeking relief from material existence, and you are seeking some Sukha Aishwarya. That's the name of the Mukti. Sukha Aishwarya Uttara Mukti. You get Sukha. Vaikuntha literally means where there is no misery, a place of no misery. So that if you're seeking escape from misery, if you're seeking peace, that is also a selfish desire. What should we rather wish for? We should wish for seva. Frame my loving service to the Lord. Even if it takes me to hell, I'm ready to go to hell if I can get an opportunity to serve Krishna there. That's how the devotees think. So for devotees, seva is above all. Okay. So further, we discussed the second verse also, that the vastava vastu, this is actually tangible. So dharma pravajita kaitava. What is kaitam dharma? We saw any instrumental religion, which still leads to materialism. It might appear religious, but its goal is still materialism. Or even religion performed at bodily conception is also kaita dharma. What is religion performed at the bodily level? What am I trying to indicate? Dharma, artha, kama, moksha. This is, where do you perform it from? You perform it from a bodily level. What is varnashram dharma? I am a brahmana. So, Brahmanical duties are good for me, but are they suitable for you forever? No. Even the designation of a Brahmana, Vaishya, Brahmachari, Sannyasi, these are all bodily conceptions. So if we perform Varnashram Dharma, that is also Kaitava Dharma, according to the definition of the second verse, because it is religion performed with a bodily conception of life. So we are moving to Bhagavad Dharma, Paro Dharma, the Dharma of the soul proper, not of the body. And what is the Dharma of the soul? Naham Vipro na cha Narpati, napi Vaishyo na Shrudro, kintu Prodhyana Nikila Parmananda Purnamritabdhar Gopi Bharatur Padakamalayur Das Das Dasana Das. At the soul level, our only identity can be that I am a servant of Krishna. I'm not, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says this verse, I'm not a sannyasi, I'm not a Kshatriya, I'm not a Brahmana. These are all designations. So they are meant to bring us to a stage of Sattva Gun. But once you are there, once you are at Sattva Gun, you have the association of devotees, you have the opportunity to hear the holy name. That's it. The purpose of Varnashram Dharma is achieved. You don't need to practice it now. You need to practice the direct limbs of bhakti. Does it make sense? So that is the kind of dharma that Srimad Bhagavatam is rejecting. And this is not going to be the religion that we are interested in. Yeah. So is it okay? Can we reject Varnashram Dharma? What do you think? What is the purpose of Varnashram? According to the Bhagavad Gita?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, are you talking about Daiva Varnashrama?
Yes. What is its purpose? Why should we practice? It is also mentioned in the purport to the second verse, which we discussed.
It helps in the alignment with the Swadharma based on the nature that God has given us.
Correct. So here it says the Vedas are prescribed in a regulative way so that there will not be any undue competition for sense gratification. So it is bringing us to a peaceful, prosperous life. That is the idea. We are regulating from the four Purusharthas, Artha, wealth creation, and Kama, sense enjoyment. You do in a dharmic way. You tie it to Dharma and always keep an eye on the ultimate goal of moksha. So this is Varnashram Dharma, that engage in your duties. But this is also to lead us to Sattva-guna, as I'm saying. So once you are there, you don't need to stay there. That's the point. Okay. So what should we do then? We fully surrender and practice devotion. chant Krishna's name. So, can chanting be enough? Is chanting enough, or we need to also practice other things along with it? What about our anarthas? What about our distracted mind?
Association of devotees, right? That's so important.
Yeah,
And then you do all the 9 limbs of bhakti. Try
mm,
to use them as much as you can.
right. So, how should we, make how should we reach the goal of Krishna prem? Or how do we develop the relation with Krishna? What does the second verse say? Sadhyo hridi avrudyate. Immediately, Krishna is captured within the heart. What is it saying? So, how can you achieve Krishna within the heart?
By hearing process, Prabhuji, should we?
Yes, yes, that is what is mentioned. Hearing what?
About
Shush,
Krishna Katha.
Krishna
Krishna
Katha.
Katha, Harinam. So, if we are chanting the names of the Lord, how should we chant so that Lord appears within our heart? What do you think?
Enthusiastically, submissively, crying in the names of begging for mercy of the divine.
Okay. What if your mind is distracted? What if, what are the things that we hear we should chant like?
Uh, and we say
Submissive,
Shikshashtakam,
attentively.
third verse.
Attentively. What are you saying, Prabhu?
Submissively.
Submissively.
Shikshashtakam, third verse, we say Trinadapi Suntena, Tharorapi Sahishnuna, Amani
Right.
Namanadena. We have to strive for these.
Okay.
Loudly chanting. You have to hear when you're chanting, you have to loudly chant it and not just recite it in your mind.
So, are we saying that for Krishna to appear in our heart, these things are a prerequisite: attention, focus, purification of anarthas, yeah, feeling.
Yes.
How many feel it is? Raise your hands in the Zoom.
But like in the previous class, you had mentioned that,
Purification of heart is necessary. And the symptom is surrender. Yeah, last class you talked about this purification of heart. Like Shraddha begins with that.
Yeah, it's that. Okay, go on. We'll clarify it more.
Tadvidi, with humility, tadvidi prashnena.
That is to, understand the truth. That is the way to receive spiritual knowledge. I'm asking specifically, how should our chanting be so that Krishna appears in our heart?
Nirmatsaram Satam.
Okay,
Yeah.
now you're coming to the point. What does Nirmat
Non-envious.
Prabhu, as per Srila Prabhupada teaching, Prabhupada always says that one should chant like a child is crying for mother.
Correct? Like a baby, helplessly. What else? You mentioned Nirmatsaranam. What does that mean? What is Nirmatsaranam?
Non-envious. Non-envious.
Correct. And what can we add to that? How should our chanting be? If we are non-envious, automatically we will also be.
well-wishers of others.
Yes, you're getting there. What type of chanting?
Offenseless.
Offenseless chanting. 100 points. So the point is, Nirmatsaranam Satam, the whole idea of this is that we develop offenseless chanting. And there's this verse from Srila Hari Bhakti Vilas, where it says, the name of Krishna is sweeter than the sweetest. the most auspicious of all auspicious things, the true fruit of the creeper of all the Vedas, and purely spiritual in nature. Okay, so this is glorifying the holy name. What does it say ahead? Even if sung once, whether with faith or even neglectfully, Krishna's name can deliver any human being. So the only thing that we have to cultivate is Krishna consciousness, offenselessness. If offenselessly you chant even one name of Krishna, that's enough for Krishna to appear. You don't have to separately practice to be. Krishna has no problem with your anarthas. He says, Chaturveda bhajante ma. Artho, what do you think? Artho doesn't have anarthas. So Krishna is saying, I am not really concerned with your purity because everyone who approaches me, they are not going to be perfect souls. I am more concerned with your sincerity. Are you chanting offenselessly? So attention, it's good that we need to do it, but please try to understand the context. If we say that we have to chant with after purification, with attention, with feeling, what are we doing? We are undermining the power of holy name. That is dangerous. That is aparadh. That is nama aparadh. We should have firm faith in our heart that holy name alone is sufficient to make Krishna appear when you chant it offenselessly. Now, that whole process of anartha nivritti bhajana kriya, that is to come to a stage of offenselessness. When we are still in a place, in a stage where we are committing offenses, that is the path we are in. We are doing bhajana kriya, anartha nivritti, all of that. But when you do it offenselessly, then even one holy name is sufficient to make Krishna appear in your heart. That is what this verse is saying. Sadhyo, immediately, Prithivi, Shushusha Tatshanat. Without delay, Krishna is captured in the heart. So even when we study the pastime of Ajamil, it's Sadhyo. It's not that Ajamil was consciously remembering Krishna. He didn't meant to call Krishna. Think about that. He just called out to his son, Narayana. And because of calling out Narayana, the Chatur Akshara Nam, 4 Vishnu Dutas appeared. So it is about offenseless chanting. That's the point I'm trying to present. Does it make sense? Are you convinced? Any questions? So purity is not Krishna says apichet suduracharo. Somebody might be, durachari, not just an ordinary durachari, sudurachari. Somebody commits some major, ethical or moral mistakes. Sadhureva samantavya. They are on my path. Very soon they will become perfect. So the idea is we have to have that strong faith through which we surrender. And when we chant offenselessly, Krishna will immediately appear. So the context of what we are discussing is holy name's power. Holy name alone is sufficient to attract Krishna. By creating dependencies like attentive, purified heart, we are undermining the power of the holy name, which is an offense. What do you think?
I have a question.
Yes.
Is offenseless chanting an achievement or it is a process?
Good question. Good question. So, that's the whole process. We come to a mode of goodness. We come in the association of devotees, and when we regularly, sincerely hear and chant, that is what makes us Krishna conscious. That is what makes us offenseless. So the process is Shravan Kirtan. And when you do it for long enough, you will achieve that offenseless chanting. So we were discussing in Nectar of Instruction, Srila Prabhupada mentions these 3 states. First, chanting is done at Nama Aparadh level with offenses. Second is done at Namabhas level. It's not pure, but it's not also as offensive as the first stage. And third is Shuddhana. So Shuddhanam should be our goal, that my chanting should be offenseless. That's what I'm trying to say. So how do you reach there? By this process of purification, Shravan Kirtan, in the association of devotees. Is that okay?
But for offenseless chanting, we will require to be attentive, to be focused, and to make sure that we are not distracted. Because ultimately, it does sound like an achievement, right? Because you can't get to offenseless chanting right at the first score or in the initial stages. It's going to take a while to get there.
Fine, fine. But what is the effective mechanism? It is not the attention which attracts Krishna. That is the yogic understanding. It is the offenseless calling out to Krishna that attracts him. So we can have other things, but our faith should be that chanting should be without apara. Other things could be helpful, I'm not saying, but I'm saying they are not necessary, they are not dependencies, they are not prerequisites. There's a difference between being beneficial and being a prerequisite. That is what I'm trying to say. So, don't undermine the power of the holy name. And faithless, what we're talking of, Nirmansara means dveshi, means offensive. So if somebody is dveshi, if they have envy, they'll not be able to chant offenselessly. They'll be averse to the holy name. So we discussed this in Upadeshamrit, also it comes in Srimad Bhagavatam, that among those who are ignorant, those who do not know about Krishna, his holy name, there are two categories. One is the innocent ignorant. With them you can share the glories of the holy name. But then there is a envious ignorant, the inimical ignorant. With them you don't need to share because they harbor aversion towards Krishna in their heart. They harbor envy towards Krishna in their heart. So what is the ninth offense? To preach the glories of the holy name to a faithless person. So to this category of people, it is recommended that you remain indifferent. You don't share with them the glories of the holy name because they have an aversion. Nirmatsara, they are not Nirmatsara. They have Matsarya, envy or aversion towards Krishna. So if somebody has an offensive mentality, then it is not right to share that they chant. So first comes scriptural guidance, purification, rising to sattva guna, coming in devotee association. Then that aversion goes away, and then one actually starts getting the benefit of chanting. Okay, so this is how we understand the potency of chanting. Sadhyo hridi avrityate, instantly, tatshana. And we also discussed that Kaita dharma is that which is related to designations at a bodily level. So, Brahman dharma, Vaishya dharma, Vanapras dharma, Grihastha dharma, they are beneficial only till a certain time. After that, that same dharma becomes inauspicious. Do you know that? So, what is that dharma which is good at all times for everyone? And we're going to see that. That is the chanting of the Holy. So, you can be an offender, a neophyte, an advanced, even envious persons can take shelter of holy name. The idea is like Jaga and Madhai. Should they be allowed to chant? If they desire deliverance, number one, they want to get freed from that sinful mentality. They want to be delivered. Second, they promise that they don't fall back into their sinful activities again. That's what Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told me. Don't go back to your sinful life. I bless you now. So anyone can take shelter, but there should be a desire to change. Not that I keep my aversion, I keep my enmity towards Krishna and I practice. That is aparad. That is nama aparad. So when we are at Shuddhana, immediately the Lord will appear. So these stages that we go through, Vajana Kriya, Anartha Nivritti. That is when we still have offenses. That is our condition. So that is the stages we are going through. Otherwise, if you are having Dhrida Shraddha, strong faith and surrender, you are offenselessly chanting, then you are straight getting Krishna Prem. That is the power of Shuddha Bhava. It doesn't need to, Prabhupada says that, and it does not require to go through that process. One can directly achieve Krishna Prem. Okay. Any other questions?
Prabhuji, I just wanted to ask, is there a difference between chanting with pure heart and chanting offenselessly? I did not understand that.
Yeah, bro. So see, purification is sin. Yeah, purification of heart is what is purification of heart? That the anarthas of kama, krodh, lobha, matsarya are not there. Is that our understanding of pure heart? So
Yes,
that
so
comes in the category.
when you have enviousness, envy is also anarthana, so it is
Yeah,
a part of
Kam, krodh, modh, matsarya, envy.
so Matsarya
So,
is enviousness, and then
correct,
when envy is there, naturally the offense is there, isn't it?
correct. So what we are trying to say is that all of these anarthas come in the category of sin. Okay. And sin is at a bodily level, but offense is at a spiritual level. So when we say offenseless chanting means we respect spiritual objects and spiritual persons, fully respect them, don't offend them. Papa never pap will be cured. You remember the example of Dhuli Lep and Vajra Lep? Sin is like a mark of dirt. It can be cleansed. Offense is like a mark of a lightning strike, and thunderbolt strikes a rock. That mark cannot be clean. That will remain. So offense is at a spiritual level. Sin is at a bodily level. So Krishna is saying, I am okay with your sin. Come to me. I'll accept you. But offense, because it is at a spiritual level, it will harm your faith. That is the
So have
difference.
I understood it rightly that sin is inside your heart and offense is when you do something negative outside and hurt someone?
Yeah, I mean, I'm saying that offense is at spiritual level. So spiritual objects like Guru, Vaishnavas, Shastras. So when you disregard them or disrespect them, that is an aparadh happening. If you are committing an act out of lust or envy, that is papa happening. So papa can be cleansed. Krishna is like, okay, papa is fine, I'll purify you. But sin, if you do, then you are killing your own faith. That is Hati Mata Aparadh. Your Bhakti Lata Beej will, your garden of bhakti will be destroyed. So
Got it,
therefore,
got it.
offenseless chanting is more important than purity. It's the same message of the Bhagavad Gita. Yeah. So further, so this is such a strong method. Just by chanting, we can attract Krishna in our heart. But it should be offenseless. And offenses, we carry offenses from our past life also. So it is, we have to really, how can we overcome offenses? By mercy of devotees. So it is said that when offenses are present, holy name does not reveal its full glory. Like there is a criminal. So the criminal or an offender goes to a king. The king does not, you know, shower blessings or bounties, gifts on the criminal. Why? Because king has the ability, but the criminal nature of the person is withholding that generosity of the king. So similarly, holy name has all power to give us prem. So offenses do not counteract the ability of holy name. Offenses just make us not for good recipients of that mercy. So holy name ka power intact hai. Offenses are only making us not receive that mercy of the holy name. Holy name is like a king who can give whatever you want. But our offensive nature is what restricts that. King says, I'll not give. Not that he cannot, but he will not. So therefore, in the hearts of the Nirmatsarana, Krishna doesn't appear. And Shushrubi Nirmatsaranam, this is beautiful, we have seen. So purpose of all dharma is to evoke Krishna Prem. To become Krishna conscious is the goal of all dharma prescribed in the scriptures. So serving the Lord in full surrender, that is how we become offenseless. So bhakti starts with full surrender. So first we surrender. Krishna says, Sarva dharman parityajya mam ekam sharanam vraja. Surrender to me. I'll remove all your offenses. Not that once you remove your sin, once you come to me purified, then you can surrender. No, first surrender happens. And then Krishna purifies us from that enviousness, that offensiveness. So just for that cleaning of the heart, which you're talking of Cheto Darpana Marjana, we just need to have pure devotion. We should have firm faith that just by performing pure devotion, my heart will be cleansed. I'll achieve all perfection. Shraddha Shabde Vishwase Kahe Sudrida Nischay Krishna Bhakti Koila Sarva Karma Krita Hoy. I don't have to separately do other things. By doing direct devotional service in the limbs of bhakti, I'll achieve all perfection. And what are those direct limbs of bhakti? When you act at your spiritual identity. What is the spiritual identity we discussed? Nitya Krishna Das, not even Brahman, Kshatriya, Sannyasi, Brahmachari, none of that. That is also bodily designation. Only when we act at the level of I'm Krishna Das. And how long should we act at that level? Half an hour, 2 hours in the morning? And then go back to our bodily consciousness? No. Eternal servant of Krishna. So this is the spirit. This is, what bhakti actually means. And here this verse also says, Kim Vapare. When you have faith in the Lord, you don't need anything else. Before you develop faith in the Lord, which we will study which we have studied in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Jata Shraddha Mat Kathasu, Nirvinna Sarva Karmashu. Till the time you have developed detachment from material and fruitive activities, and you have developed a taste for hearing my katha. Till that time, you need to follow the various other dharmas, like Varnashram. But once you have reached the stage of mode of goodness by practicing those dharmas, in that mode of goodness, you hear Srimad Bhagavatam, you develop faith in the Lord, and then you don't need any other dharma. That is what the point is. Yeah, so, but the danger is you have not developed faith in Krishna and Krishna Katha, and you also give up Varnashram here. What will happen? Varnashram at least makes you follow regulated, activities. That's called what is prescribed in the scriptures is called karma. What is not prescribed in the scriptures is called vikarma. So, without developing that Shraddha, if we give up Varnashram, then we will fall back straight into vikarma. For every stage of qualification, there is a certain method. Yeah. So if we have attachments, if we have material desires, the step is Varnashram Dharma. By practicing Varnashram Dharma, if you've reached a stage of Sattva Gun, have come in touch with sadhus, are performing Shravan Kirtan, Bhagavatam, Harinam, that means you are qualified for the next stage. If you continue doing what was of the previous stage, then that is an obstruction, that is a fault. So depending on if we have achieved the result of the previous stage, we can give it up. But if we have not achieved the result of the previous stage, which is to develop Vasudeva Katha Rati, then we cannot give it up. Otherwise, we'll go straight back into Vikarma. So the process, Srila Prabhupada is saying, in the last part of this purport is sincerely, submissively hear Srimad Bhagavatam. So this is a place of allowing Krishna in the form of Bhagavatam to enter our hearts and purify us. This is direct bhakti. So just trust Krishna that, yes, Krishna, I am ready to follow the direct lens of bhakti. Yeah, if we are performing karma and offering that karma to Krishna, that is not pure devotion. Yeah, that is karma arpanam. So primarily we should be focusing on direct devotional activities. And then secondarily, or we perform other activities without faith. Not that that is from where I'll get my subsistence. Shri Krishna says, I am going to be your provider, not your occupation. Yeah. So that is the faith we should have as Vaishnavas. We have, entering the realm of Srimad Bhagavatam. We have firm faith that Krishna will provide. He's providing for all his children. Why will he not provide for me who's trying to turn my face towards him? Yeah. So that trust in Krishna, that full surrender in Krishna, that performance of direct devotional acts of Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Dasyam, Sakhya, Atma Nivedanam. These are directly performing these limbs of bhakti as pure devotion. Okay, so just like we said, we reject that religion which is at a bodily conception of life, varnashram. So if you consider yourself the body, then you have to consider that I have to do my swadharma, which is Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, and then offer the results of my work to Krishna. That is a part of what Bhagavad Gita recommends, but Bhagavatam starts way, ahead. It says all of that is also a prapancha, Baba. You are still considering yourself a body, therefore you are identifying as a Brahmana, as a Grihastha. We are saying that here it is at a spiritual level. At a spiritual level, you are Krishna Das. Just remember that and have that consciousness throughout the day. Don't go to the lower consciousness of my karma arpanam. That's good to purify if you've started from a place of fruitive mentality and ego. It'll purify that. But after that, once you develop faith in Krishna and Bhakti, you don't need that. That is also a bodily identification. Okay? I thought it was good to, just clarify these things before we move ahead, because these three verses are creating the foundation of the entire Srimad Bhagavatam. Yes. Any questions?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhu.
So with that same consciousness, a person should also continue with his responsibilities in the society. Is that right understanding?
Prabhu, see, that's what I said. If you consider yourself a body, you will consider that I'm a Vaishya. So it's, those social responsibilities also are at a bodily level. Whatever
But
we
then,
do, you should do with the consciousness of I'm doing this because I'm a servant of Krishna. How can I do this to please Krishna? So, today you might be a Vaishya, tomorrow you are happy to be a Brahmana, third day you are happy to be a, whatever. So the idea is you are not identifying with those material bodily designations. You are saying, whatever it takes to serve Krishna, I will do that. So therefore, you see devotees, they can be so fluid. They have no personality, fixed personality types. If it requires to preach, I'll preach. If it requires to manage, I'll manage. To have this hangover that, oh, I am a this, that is mind body.
Got it.
So if Krishna wants me to teach, I'll teach. If Krishna wants me to construct, I'll construct. उसमें शूद्र नहीं बन जाऊंगा मैं. I'll always be a Krishna das. It is a huge difference, you see. So first we are Vaishnavas, and then all this Swabhava is at a bodily level. So Bhagavatam is starting with Swarupa. You are Nitya Krishna Das. Even your Swabhav Swadharma, that is a bodily designation. Reject that. So this is a radical approach. It is asking you to act at a transcendental level, at a spiritual level. Okay. So here, now we can continue with the next verse. Verse 4. So here now, after the prelude, now Srimad Bhagavatam begins. Let's chant verse 4. निमिषे निमिषक्षेत्रे ऋषया शौनकादयः सत्रं स्वर्गाय लोकाय सहस्र सम आसता. So, what is the scene? The camera is focusing on scene 1. This is in Naimisharanya. Once in a holy place in the forest of Naimisharanya, great sages headed by the sage Shaunaka assembled to perform a great 1,000-year sacrifice for the satisfaction of the Lord and his devotees. So we are in the forest of Naimisharanya, where Shaunaka Adi rishis are assembled. So what are they doing? They are doing a yagya. So Srila Prabhupada says the prelude of Srimad Bhagavatam was spoken in the previous 3 shlokas. Now the main topic of this great literature is being presented. Srimad Bhagavatam, after its first recitation by Srila Shukdev Goswami. So first recitation of Srimad Bhagavatam happened by Srila Shukdev Goswami to Parikshit Maharaj. And in that audience, Suta Goswami was present. And that Suta Goswami was also in this Naimisharanya, same area. So the sages who had assembled there to perform yagya, headed by Shaunakadi rishis, they approached Suta Goswami. And oh Suta Goswami, you are a great devotee. You have heard this message of Bhagavatam. Please narrate it to us. So the second recitation of Srimad Bhagavatam happened by Suta Goswami to the rishis in Naimisharanya who were headed by Shaunaka Rishi. So Brahma is why is the name Naimisharanya? It is considered that it is in cosmology, Brahmaji. There are 2 explanations. One is that it is the hub of this great circle which Brahmaji was contemplating, that if I have to create a cosmos, where will be the hub? That is Nimisha Kshetre. Second explanation is Nimisha is also considered the hub of a wheel. So where the hub of that conceptual wheel of creation fell, that place is called Naimisharanya. So it is said in Varaha Puran that when we perform sacrifice in this holy place, the strength of demoniac people is curtailed. So this is an auspicious place. Just like you remember, this is how striking comparison between Bhagavad Gita. Dharma Kshetre, Kurukshetre. And what is it saying here? Nimisha Kshetre. So first is the place is holy. That was the fear of Dhritarashtra. Oh my God, will the holy influence of Kurukshetra make my sons change their mind and give up fighting? That was his fear. So the place was powerful, the place was potent, Kurukshetra, and here it is Naimisharanya. So both granthas are beginning with glorifying the place. So Srila Prabhupada then explains what is yagya or satra. So this is the assembly of this Naimisharanya sages was considered to be a mixed assembly. There were sages of all types. Yeah. So just like, different devotees can have different desires and can perform bhakti at different levels. So all the desires of these persons upon which their mind was fixed can be fulfilled by Srimad Bhagavatam. That was the presentation of Sutta Goswami. All types of people in the audience are okay. Bhagavatam can fulfill the desires of each type of audience. So Bhagavatam has been arranged in a way to bring out this point from the very beginning that the sages of Naimisharanya were of different desires. But Srimad Bhagavatam is presented in such a way that it can fulfill everyone's desires. We will see beautiful verses as we go ahead. For the devotees, it's nourishment to the heart. For those distressed by material existence, it gives relief. So those verses are presented ahead. So here, Naimisharanya, not just when Srila Prabhupada says, the strength of demoniac people is curtailed, it is indicating that demoniac people's influence will not work here, which is also indicating the influence of material desires. So it is said that in the beginning, these sages, headed by Shaunaka, they were initially attached to Sakam Karma. That yes, let's do this yajna for this result. Because clearly this verse is saying that Satram Swargaya Lokaya. So they were performing sacrifice to attain Swarga. Yes, Srila Prabhupada also presents, they were performing a 1,000-year sacrifice for the satisfaction of Vishnu. That is also a reading. But acharyas explain it can also be read in a way that they were performing it for achieving Swarga. But by hearing and contemplating various Puranas and other scriptures from Sutta Goswami's father, Romaharshan, so they started with the desire for Sakam Karma, but from Romaharshan Sutta, they heard various Puranas and other scriptures, and that led them into contemplation, and they became inquisitive for spiritual life. That was the state before they started hearing from Sutta Goswami. And after associating with Sutta Goswami, hearing from him, they developed a little taste for bhakti. Their inquisitiveness turned into taste for bhakti. So this is the journey that the scriptures take us through. Yes, first it leads to contemplation, and then it leads to inquisitiveness, and then it leads to relish. So who you associate with? So Srila Romaharshan Sut gave them the contemplation about spiritual life. And Sutta Goswami, because he was a pure devotee of the Lord, that gave them direct relish for bhakti. So our life entirely depends on grace. When we say bhagya, good fortune arising, is that we come in touch with an advanced devotee. Somebody whose faith is pure, somebody who has love for Krishna. When we encounter them, the paths of our life change forever. By karma, we would have, continued wandering on that journey for lifetimes. But because a pure devotee's path crossed our life, we got that taste for bhakti, we got that faith in bhakti. So it is not our doing, it is actually their greatness. So encountering devotees is the biggest good fortune. So because we see this when we read the 18th chapter of this of this canto, if you turn ahead, chapter 18, verse number 12, there the sages are saying, the Rishya Uvacha, so the same sages who are addressing Sutta Goswami now, the same sages are saying in the 12th verse, we have just begun the performance of this fruitive activity. A sacrificial fire without certainty of its result due to the many imperfections in our own action. So our actions are imperfect. We are not certain of its result. That means they had a result in mind. Our bodies have become black from smoke. So their faces have blackened. So this is indicating that yes, they started out as having desire, but that got transformed into inquisitiveness about spiritual life in association of Srila Romaharsha and Sutta. And then in the association of Sutta Goswami, directly they developed a little taste, small taste for bhakti. So when bhakti, they started bhakti, then the inquisitiveness became weak. And then their desire to perform that yajna became completely, it vanished. They said, we don't want to perform this yajna. The only benefit that this yajna, or the only result that this yajna has led to is blackening our faces. Otherwise, there has been no benefit. So the point is that the power of bhakti, coming in touch with a pure devotee, that leads to cessation of attachment to prescribed duties. Same thing that we have been discussing. When we hear Srimad Bhagavatam, our attachment to prescribed duties is also, it disappears because we realize that's not transcendental. That's still bodily, that's still material. And not just disinterest or, no attachment to prescribed duties, also a complete disinterest in impersonal liberation. That comes from the example of Shukdev Goswami himself. He was a liberated soul, Parinishthito. We will see this in second canto. So Shukdev Goswami is telling about himself. I was perfectly situated in transcendence. I was in Nirgun. And I was beyond the gunas. Parinishthito pi Nirgunya uttama shloka leelaya. Still, I was attracted by this beautiful narration of Srimad Bhagavatam. So the point is, Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhakti are so potent that they dissolve our attachment to prescribed duties and create a complete disinterest and impersonal liberation. Even liberated souls are attracted to topics of Krishna. That is the point. Is it okay? Any questions? So further, Srila Prabhupada says here, so Satram means offering sacrifices for the pleasure of Vishnu, Yagyavahi Vishnu. Anything that is performed in the material world for any reason other than to please the Lord becomes a cause for bondage, which is this verse from the Bhagavad Gita. How long back did you do your Bhakti Shastra? Yagyartha karmano anyatra lokoyam karma bandhana. If you don't do your karma in the spirit of yagya, it will only lead to karma bandhan in chapter 3. So if your karma is not directed towards Yagyapati, Krishna, it is going to be a cause of your bondage. All acts should be performed for the satisfaction of Vishnu and his devotee. This will bring everyone peace and prosperity. Okay, so this was about Satram. Next, Prabhupada explains Rishaya. Who are Rishis? Why are they, this bunch of people with matted hair, long beard, wearing old clothes? Why are they gathered in the forest? They are wasting their time. Why don't they get a job? So who are these Rishis? That is explained. The great sages are always anxious to do good to people in general. Sages are those who have reached a place of extreme compassion for humanity. They have evolved themselves. They are themselves, at advanced stage of realization. But they feel for us. They feel, oh my God, these souls are suffering. They are missing the opportunity that they could achieve in a human life. What could we do for them? That's the mindset of rishis. They assemble at this place, holy place of Naimisharanya, with a program of performing a great and continuous chain of sacrificial performances. Sahasra can be a 1,000 or it can be a continuous. So sages know what is the right way to achieve peace and prosperity. Otherwise, those who are unaware of these transcendental truths which we have been discussing in the past few sessions, do you think if we give the steering in their hands, can you lead the world to prosperity? They cannot, because they don't have the truth. They don't have the understanding of truth. They are in a delusion. They are in a dream. And in a dream, whatever you do, it's not going to lead to substantial any change in your reality. Whereas the rishis, because they are sincere friends to all living entities, and at the risk of great personal inconvenience, they don't need to do this. They can just simply meditate. But they are concerned for us. Therefore, they undergo this penance. They do yagya, dana, tapa for our sake. So as soon as we are born, we are indebted to rishis because rishis have performed new, infinite tapas to distill wisdom, to give us a practice, to give us a tradition. We are benefiting from their austerity, aren't we? So we have to express our gratitude to those rishis by studying the literature, by sharing the literature. Lord Vishnu is like a tree, and all other entities are like parts of the tree. If you pour water on the tree, yatha tarora mula nishechane, just please Vishnu, perform devotional service. By doing that, you are watering the root. Automatically, the entire humanity will be satisfied, will reach a stage of peace. What's the point of watering leaves and branches if they are detached from the tree? So the idea is one who is not aware of the understanding of Satyam Param, as much endeavor, as much planning them can do, they are not connected to the tree. So there will be no benefit for humanity. One attempting to do so is simply wasting his energy and resources. The modern materialistic society is detached from its relationship to the Supreme Lord. So Prabhupada is looking at the problems of a world from a very different lens. Are they understanding their relationship with God? If not, then everything is going to be futile because you're missing the foundation. All its plans, which are being made by atheistic leaders, are sure to be baffled at every step. Which verse of the Bhagavad Gita? Baffled at every step. Moga asha, moga karma, moga jnana vichetasa. So if you are a separatist, how much ever resourceful, intelligent you are, you will still be caught and put in the prison. You will not be appreciated for your skills. Why? Because your mindset is faulty. You have a separatist mindset, anti-authority mindset. So that is what Srila Prabhupada is looking at the society as. Anti-God mindset. That is, whatever you do, it's like a separatist trying to do anything against the plan of the government. That will never be successful. So therefore, in this age, the congregational chanting of the holy names of the Lord is the prescribed method for waking up. So what yagya should we do? Sankirtan yagya. This is scientifically presented by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and intelligent persons may take advantage of his teachings in order to bring about real peace and prosperity. Okay, so this is the purpose of Srimad Bhagavatam. So here these sages have assembled. And what are they doing now? Let us read the 5th verse. Ta ekada tu munaya pratar huta huta agnayah satkritam sutam asinam prapachur idamadarat. So what these Shanaka and other rishis, one day after finishing their morning duties, which is the yagya, by burning a sacrificial fire, huta is what you offer into the yagya. Huta Agni is the sacrificial fire. So after they did their morning duties, they offered a seat of esteem to Srila Sutta Goswami. Why did they choose Sutta Goswami suddenly? We'll see that. The great sages made inquiries with great respect about the following matters. So this chapter is entitled Questions by the Sages. So we will see in this chapter 6 brilliant fundamental questions presented by these sages of Naimisharanya. And the rest of the Srimad Bhagavatam is an answer to these 6 questions. So it's very important to systematically understand each question. So Prabhupada starts by saying, morning is the best time to hold spiritual services. So he's talking about morning program. That morning is a time where Sattva Gun is predominant. So our system is to wake up early, chant, pray, study. That is the time which is favorable for spiritual practice. It's called Brahma Muhurt, 1 to 1.5 hours before sunrise. So that should be used for spiritual activities. So they offered a seat of respect. So what is that seat of respect called? Vyas Asana. Vyas Asana, where the Pravakta of Srimad Bhagavatam sits. So that name comes from Vyasdev, because Vyasdev is the original teacher of the compiler of Srimad Bhagavatam. Commentator. He is composed Srimad Bhagavatam. So anyone who represents Vyasdev is given that seat of honor of Vyas Asana. A representative is one who can exactly present the viewpoint of Sri Vyasdev. So in tradition, when you are in Parampara, you are presenting the viewpoint of your predecessor acharyas. What did Vyasdev teach? That is what I'm going to share with you today. So Srila Vyasdev gave the message of Srimad Bhagavatam to Shukadev Goswami, and Suta Goswami heard it from him, from Shukdev Goswami. And now the sages of Naimisharanya wanted to hear it from Suta Goswami. Okay. So all bona fide representatives of Sri Vyas in the Parampara are called Goswami. So Shukdev Goswami, Suta Goswami. Why are we calling them Goswami? Because they are truly representing Vyasdev. That's the point. And of course, Goswami means master of senses. They do not deliver lectures on Bhagavatam capriciously. Capriciously means according to the meaning you want to present, to lead an audience, to persuade an audience towards a certain agenda of yours. That's not the purpose of Bhagavatam. It's not a managerially motivated presentation. It's a pure presentation of the previous acharyas. So you have to present it as they presented. Rather, they execute their services most carefully, following their predecessors who delivered the spiritual message unbroken to them. Now imagine if in the parampara, if each participant starts to add or subtract, what will happen? You'll never receive the true original message. And if the message is not intact, it loses its potency. It loses its purity. So the only purpose of parampara is to transmit the message. Truth preservation is the purpose of tradition. It's not for self, it's not about me. It's about, am I transmitting the message intact? So in a tradition, message comes first, not the individual. Therefore, we talk of Guru, Sadhu, Shastra. All three have to align. What the Guru is teaching is always aligned with Shastra, is always aligned with what the sadhus would, approve. So one who listens to Bhagavatam may put questions to the speaker to clarify the meaning, but it should not be done in a challenging spirit. We saw the spirit of questioning in the previous verse also. The point is, this can be received only in a submissive way, in a non-envious way. So, because Bhagavatam is so pure and potent, we have to humble ourselves in front of Bhagavatam. And you can clarify 100%, but not in a challenging attitude. You can submit questions with great regard for the speaker and the subject matter. Tad vidhi praniprashnena. Tad vidhi pariprashnena. And next, the word Rishaya, the sages make an appeal to Suta Goswami in the next verse. They described, why have we chosen you, Suta Goswami, today? Yeah. Why are we making you speak to us? Toya khalu puranani setihasani chanagha akhyatani api adhitani dharmashastrani yani uta. The sages said, respected Suta Goswami, you are completely free from all vice. Yeah. You are well versed with all the scriptures famous for religious life and in the Puranas and the histories as well. Histories are itihasa. For you have gone through them under proper guidance and have also explained them. So, one is, have you received them systematically? Have you received it from the right source in the right way? Second is, have you explained it to them? So, Srila Sutta Goswami is addressed as Anagha. Anagha means pure, completely pure at heart. Because if somebody has self-interest, somebody has vices, that is mixed, that contaminates their message. So therefore, a qualified speaker is one who is pure. They'll not contaminate the message with their vices or their ego. So the four major vices of Kali Yuga are the four regulative principles which we follow. A Goswami must be free from all these vices before he can dare sit on the Vyasasana. Okay, so this is the qualification to represent Vyasdev. No one should be allowed to sit on the Vyasasana who is not spotless in character and who is not freed from the above mentioned vices. Yeah, so free from vices and well versed in all revealed scriptures. So, Shruti are the word of God. They contain the Vedas, the Upanishads. The Smritis are the compilation of the sages. What they are memory of the message of God. They are the itihasas, like Mahabharata and Ramayana, the Puranas, yeah, Vedanta Sutra. So these are two categories of scriptures, Shruti and Smriti. So one has to be well versed in all of them. The Puranas are also part of the Vedas. So even though it is Smriti, Puranas are also given the same authority as Shruti, especially Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam. They might be Smriti, but they have the same authority as Shruti. So the Acharya must be well acquainted with all these literatures. So first is character should be spotless. Second is well versed in scriptures. Third is adhitani, well read, and akhyatani. What we are doing here is exactly this. We are hearing and explaining. So the best way to learn is by teaching. So the sages are saying, because you have heard and explained them, therefore you have assimilated their meaning. So hearing is called Shravana and explaining is called Kirtana. Shravan and Kirtan are the two most important processes of progressive spiritual life. So hearing and sharing. So one who has properly grasped the transcendental knowledge from the right source by submissive hearing can properly explain. So if somebody has received it purely, sincerely, submissively, they are qualified to transmit it further. What are some other qualities of Suta Goswami which qualify him to, be the speaker for this entire assembly of sages? That is explained in the next verse. Yani Veda Vedam Shreshto Bhagavan Badarayana Anyecha Munaya Suta Paravara Vidu Viduhu. Being the eldest learned Vedantist, O Suta Goswami, you are acquainted with the knowledge of Vyasdev, who is the incarnation of Godhead, and you also know other sages who are fully versed in all kinds of physical and metaphysical knowledge. So here the qualification is that you have received the mercy of your gurus. That's when you please your gurus, you attract their blessings. When you attract their blessings, they reveal to you the entire truth, which cannot be, ascertained from any bookish knowledge. And the next verse also adds some qualities, which you will see later. Snigdhasya shishyasya. So here it is saying that you have received the mercy of your gurus, not just Vyasdev, but also all your other gurus and sages you have heard from. You know all these matters in truth. Yeah. So we therefore want to hear from you because you are fully versed in all kinds of para and avara, both kind of knowledge. So what is the principle? Basically, the sages of Naimisharanya are saying that by choosing you, we are rejecting all those sages who might be present in this assembly. We are rejecting those sages who extract their own ideas from these scriptures and then speak. We don't want to hear their ideas. We want to hear from you because you have understood the essence and you have the blessings of your gurus and you're fully well versed in this knowledge. So Srila Prabhupada says Srimad Bhagavatam is a natural commentation on the Brahma Sutra. So Vyasdev is also called Badarayana. So we've discussed this in the beginning that in his maturity, he compiled Srimad Bhagavatam. Earlier, he compiled Vedanta Sutra, Itihasas, Puranas. But in his maturity, after hearing from Narad Muni what was imperfect or what was the fault in his previous compilations, he rectified that and then presented Srimad Bhagavatam. So therefore, because it is the same author, but in a more mature state, therefore Srimad Bhagavatam is considered a commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. No Acharya in our Sampradaya has attempted to give a commentary on Vedanta Sutra. Why? Because they say Bhagavatam is the direct commentary, it's a natural commentary. Srila Baladev Vidyabhushan had to write a commentary because there was a threat to the tradition, to the worship of Radha Krishna. So in that situation, he had to write a commentary. But our acharyas don't believe there is a need to write a separate commentary on Vedanta Sutra or Brahma Sutra as they are called, because Srimad Bhagavatam is the natural commentary. So besides Vyasdev, there are other sages who are the authors of 6 different philosophical systems. Do you know these 6 philosophical systems? Have you heard of any of them?
Mimamsa, Nyaya.
Patanjali,
Hmm?
Patanjali, right?
Patanjali, that is yoga.
Jain.
So, right, Srila Prabhupada writes in this purport later, one can sit on the Vyas Asana only after being conversant in all systems of philosophy. Why do you want to speak their point of view? No. We have to be conversant with them so that one can present fully the theistic views of Bhagavatam in defiance of all other systems. So all other systems are indirectly or directly atheistic. Either they don't have a conception of God or they have a dispensable conception of God. That God may be used, but it is not necessary for their explanation. So Prabhupada says, practically in these other systems of philosophical speculations, he's calling it speculations, practically no mention is given to the ultimate cause of all causes. No Satyam Param. So they are not presenting of God. They are not presenting the idea of God. So once we know that there are perspectives, we can present Bhagavatam in defiance of those speculative philosophies. Suta Goswami was the proper teacher, and therefore the sages at Naimisharanya elevated him to the Vyasasan. Vyasdev is an incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. So we'll spend a few minutes to understand these systems. I'll show you a chart first, and then we'll discuss a little bit on that.
Prabhuji, so what
Yeah.
is what exactly do we mean here? Theism is explained completely in the Vedanta Sutta, whereas in other systems of philosophical speculations, practically no mention is given to the ultimate.
Yeah.
So they're talking about Krishna, is it? They're talking about demigod, the other.
Ultimate cause, theism means accepting a divine cause of everything. So other systems are not, theism is not explained in them. In fact, it's absent or indirect. So only Srimad Bhagavatam presents a holistic theistic view. So once we know the other systems, we can present how Bhagavatam is theistic and therefore the complete understanding of Vedanta Sutra. That is the point.
Rosie, I also had one doubt. Can I ask?
Theism is explained completely in the Vedanta Sutra. But, so what happens is, what is Vedanta Sutra? The Upanishads and the other scriptures, there are so many elements to Vedas also, Aranya, the Brahmanas, the Aranyakas. So there's so many messages by so many sages and message of God also. So Vedanta Sutra is systematizing all the teachings of all the Upanishads in one place. So theism is explained completely in Vedanta Sutra, but what happens when people try to interpret the Vedanta Sutra in different ways? They end up with different meanings. So therefore, Vedanta Sutra has theism completely, but other systems speculate about it, and therefore they don't present the cause of all causes, ultimate cause. So only Srimad Bhagavatam is presenting that. That is the point. Yeah. Yes, Prabhu, you had a question?
Yes, Prabhuji. I was wondering if, like, understanding these, if the reason we are trying to be familiar with these other systems is so that we can defend and present the theistic viewpoint, then in the modern context, do we have to learn these systems? Because generally people are not also aware of, say, Nyaya and Mimamsa, or should we rather be familiarizing ourselves with other modern systems of thought and present a theistic viewpoint in connection to them?
Right. So these are called Shad Darshanas. Darshana means perspectives or visions. So that's the beauty of our Sanatan culture. And we have the maturity to hold difference of opinion. That the same absolute truth can be perceived in different ways. A Nyayika defines absolute truth in this way. So all of them are called astic. They are all accepting the Vedas. But how they approach the Vedas, what what do they prioritize, and what means of gaining knowledge do they use, that changes their interpretation, that changes their conclusions. So these are just different patterns of thinking. And I think these are fundamental mindsets. If you understand these systems carefully, you will be able to fit any Western philosophy, you will be able to map to one of these systems, one or more of these systems. They are so foundational and fundamental. So there will be a philosopher who will be saying something, but if you have understood these six systems, you will be immediately able to say, oh, this is talking, he or she is using Vaisheshika or Nyaya or Sankhya. So you will be able to map. So I think it is helpful in that sense that a lot of Western philosophical schools can be mapped directly to one or more of these six systems. So it is still of value to study them.
Got it, Kushi. Thank you. And then probably just one extra system would be like a Gnostic system, because these Western ones, many are not
They
rooted
could
in the
be, they
Vedas.
could
So
draw from
then,
those Gnostic schools also. So how it goes is that the Indian philosophical body has these six systems, one of which is Vedanta. Yeah. And what we are studying, Srimad Bhagavatam, is presented as a natural commentary of Vedanta. So what Srila Prabhupada is saying here in answer to your earlier question, Vedanta, which is one of the six, is presenting theism completely. The other five philosophical speculations are not presenting. So let us understand them so that we can present the theism of Bhagavatam fully. And these six systems exist in Astika. They are the Astic Darshan, they accept Vedas. Then apart from these six, there are three which are Nastika, which disregard the Vedas. That is Jainism, Buddhism, and Charvak. Charvak is basically materialism. That's a philosophy of materialism. How it is, philosophically right to live a materialistic life. That's Charvak. So these three are Nastic. The six that we are studying here is Astic. And it's like we were saying, Prabhupada is saying, I mean, why would he write so strongly in his purport? So there is an importance to this. One can sit on the Vyasasana only after being conversant in all the systems of philosophy, so that one can present fully the theistic views of Bhagavatam in defiance of all other five. So it is what is called as a Purva Paksha. You should know the arguments of the other side. How will you respond? I mean, what will you tell? You should know what are you responding to. So that is called Purva Paksha. So we'll spend a few minutes to see this Shad Darshana, and they are vast actually. So depending on your interest and time, you can also explore it on your own. I'll share a map with you. So it shows you how it is placed, and then I will try to describe them. So what you see here, first is Nyaya. Nyaya the founder is Gautama Rishi, and it focuses logic and epistemology. Epistemology means how do you know that the knowledge you are receiving is true? Verify, validate the sources of knowledge. That is their focus. So they focus on the four pramanas. What are the sources of knowledge? Are the sources of your knowledge right? Then it is worth giving value to your knowledge. So what are their four sources? Pratyaksha, Anuman, Upaman, and Shabda. Perception, inference, comparison, and testimony. Perception is what you see. It's also called empiricism. You can see a fire. Anuman is inference. You don't see a fire, but you see smoke. So from the smoke, you can infer fire. That is called Anuman. Okay. Upama is comparison. You give an analogy to understand something. Shabda is testimony. You don't see a fire, you don't even see smoke, but you see a government officer, a police officer saying, don't go ahead, there is fire in the forest. And you accept their words without seeing the smoke, without seeing the fire. What is that? Shabda, testimony, because there is authority in their position. So basically, Nyaya tries to look at knowledge that if the source of your knowledge is right, with right knowledge, you can gain liberation. Next is Vaisheshika. This is also called the theory of atomism. So this is the founder is Sage Kanada, and it focuses on metaphysics and ontology. And it categorizes the entire creation into these 7 basic categories: Dravya, Guna, Karma, and they'll have Lakshana, Samanya Lakshan, Vishesha Lakshan, generality, particularity, Samanvaya, inherence, Abhava, non-existence. So they categorize their whole experience of reality into these categories, and they present a theory based on atomism, atom. That, okay, these are the 9 substances which make up reality, and by knowing them, you can attain liberation. Though this is Vaisheshika by Kanada. Third is Sankhya of Kapila. So Kapila Muni presents Sankhya, which is dualism. It divides entire creation into 2 categories: Prakriti, which is matter, and Purusha, which is consciousness. Yeah. And Prakriti is comprised of the 3 gunas, and there are 25 elements in Prakriti: earth, water, fire, air, ether. And then you use a process of elimination to identify what is your nature. Am I this? Am I this? I am not this, I am not this. It's called Naiti Naiti. So when you compare yourself with all elements and come to the conclusion, I am none of these material elements, I am a conscious soul. That's their way of reaching Viveka, discrimination. Differentiate between Purusha and Prakriti. This is the Sankhya school. The fourth is based on the philosophy or based on the metaphysics of Sankhya, is the 4th school of yoga. So yoga uses the philosophy of Sankhya but adds a practice of asanas, the Ashtanga. So Patanjali Rishi formed this yoga school, and the focus is to still the mind. Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. The fluctuation of the mind has to be ceased, made completely still. And for that, they follow the 8-fold path of Yam, Niyama, Asana, Pranayam, Pratyahar, Dharana, Dhyat, Samadhi. So they speak about Ishvara, but that Ishvara is not essential. It's an aid to their reaching their higher state of Samadhi. So it is not the same way we talk of Ishvara, Ishvara Parama Krishna. They say Ishvara Paridhyana. You could also meditate on the Ishvara because it is beneficial to meditate. So you use Ishvara as a ladder to reach your higher state of consciousness. That's the goal of introducing Ishvara in yoga. Ishvara is not the end, but the means. Then the 5th is Mimamsa. It's also called Purva Mimamsa by Sage Jaimini. They focus on the Karma Kanda part. They focus on what is morality, what is dharma. Just do your dharma. Yeah. And they speak of arthapatti and anupalabdhi. By doing your dharma, they have this concept of apurva, that when a yajna is performed, the yajna ends, but it is transmitted into a certain power which stays with you in your soul till you achieve the result of that yajna. So basically, they are the ones who put duty above divinity. They said duty kiya na, so God also has to supply to you. This was the philosophy with Sri Krishna. In his mood of performing Leela, he was speaking to Nanda Maharaj when they were worshipping Indra. So he started speaking Karma Mimamsa. You are doing your, your dharma of Vaishya. Why do you need to worship Indra? So they also use the Vedas as authority, but they use those portion of Vedas which are more ritualistic, which talk about yagya and invoking devatas and appeasing devatas. The last school is Vedanta. Vedanta is by Vyasdev or Badarayana. Also, the text is Brahma Sutra or Vedanta Sutra. So only in Vedanta are we discussing about who is God? Who am I? This is the only approach to discover Atma and Brahman is taken in the Vedanta school. And Vedanta has again different interpretations from one extreme of Shankaracharya's Advaita to the other extreme of Srila Madhvacharya's Dvaitavad and Srila Ramanujacharya's Vishishtadvaitavad and Srila Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Jiva Goswami's Achintya Bheda Bhed. They are all answering the same relationship of Brahman and Atman, but in different ways. So these are the six major schools, the six schools of Indian philosophy. And I'm sure you must have heard about them somewhere or the other. It's very popular. So we can just, try to understand a little bit about each of them, not going into too much of a detail. Nyaya, as we saw, their tools are logic. Let's depend on logic and reasoning. If you can prove it to me through logic, I will accept it. So their tools are logic, reasoning, epistemology. So if you have to think of the Nyaya school, just think of this one question. How do we know what is true? Yeah. And for that, there are the different, pramanas which we saw. And they will go through an entire journey of having a valid argument, debate, inference, proof. So a lot of Western philosophy falls in this category of Nyaya. How do we know what is true? Let's debate. Is your evidence stronger than mine? Therefore, your argument is accepted. And then, a better logician comes and defeats the previous argument. And that achintya khalue bhava natam starkena niyojayet. What is achintya? What is physical phenomena you can understand by logic. How can you create spaceship? How can you create a medicine? That is all material physical phenomena. For that, we can use logic and argument and the scientific method. But if you're interested in metaphysical topics like love, justice, morality, God, soul, these cannot be captured by logic because it's called the loop of logic is endless. Another logician comes and defeats the previous logician's argument and it continues ad infinitum. So, depending on which logician was prominent in your generation, you accept a certain truth. In our grandparents' generation, they've believed a certain logician, economist, or politician, philosopher. So they accepted their theories. Now we know those theories are wrong. So the point is, it is dangerous to live a life based on logic. I mean, I'm not denying logic, but I'm saying it has its limit. It has to be made subservient to scripture, to Shabda. Okay. So, what is their approach to liberation? That if you have the right knowledge, first test the sources of your knowledge, confirm that your knowledge is true. Because when you have the right knowledge, you can remove your wrong understanding, and that is what will lead you to moksha. This is what the Nyayikas think. Okay. Then the second school is Vaisheshika, we saw. They are like categories, the Padartha. Their main question is, what is the world made of? And then all those different categories. So they say, or they believe that when you know reality as it truly is, when you can actually come in complete knowledge of how the world is, you attain moksha. So you attain moksha by completely knowing reality. So therefore, study the reality through these different categories. Everything is made up of atoms. They're most famous for their theory of atomism. And modern science is, and aligns with a lot of the principles of Vaisheshika philosophy. Samkhya, the third one, is more of just the separation between matter, Prakriti, and Purusha. So their central question would be, what is the difference between consciousness and matter? And that is also what scientists today are seeing, that at the frontier of scientific discovery today is the study of consciousness. All other things they have solved. Consciousness, they're still saying that, see our track record. For everything else, we have been able to find a cause. Very soon, we will also find a cause for consciousness. But scriptures say it won't happen because consciousness cannot have a material cause. Consciousness has to have a conscious cause. Who is that conscious cause? Satyam Param, Abhigya Swarad. So you see, the starting of Srimad Bhagavatam is taking a approach where we say life comes from life. Life cannot come from matter. So that is a very important premise of this, which goes directly against the scientific approach of we will find. So what is a job of a scientist? The job or a dharma of a scientist is to discover a material cause for everything. That's what scientific method and discovery is, if you think about it. Oh, I'm finding a phenomena, I'm observing a phenomena. Can I find a material cause to it? That is the scientific approach. They cannot make metaphysical claims. That's outside their scope. If they are an honest scientist and you ask them about soul, God, consciousness, an honest scientist will say, that's not in my scope. Please consult a philosopher, a theologian, a priest. Yeah, they'll tell you about it. But when they overreach and make claims about God, that is, they're going against their dharma. That's not their job. So the Sankhyaits believe that if you can discriminate between what is conscious and what is unconscious, and that you identify that Purusha, that is how you attain moksha. So all are aiming for moksha, but you see their approaches are so different. So that is Sankhya, the basic discrimination between Prakriti and Purush. Then Yoga by Patanjali is based on the Sankhya metaphysics, but it adds a discipline. So out of the six, only yoga is giving a method. All other five are giving a philosophy. So yoga by itself is not a philosophy, it is a method. And this method is based on the Sankhya philosophy. And their idea is that how do you achieve liberation? When you still the fluctuations of your mind, that is how you achieve moksha. Okay. And the fifth one is Purva Mimamsa, as we saw. Their central question is how should the Vedas be interpreted and acted upon? How can I follow and understand the Vedas? So they focus especially on the ritualistic portion of the Vedas and the concept of dharma. Yeah, just do proper Vedic duties because that will produce order, that will give you punya, that will give you spiritual benefit. Just do your Vedic duty. Yeah, so that is how it focuses on the ritualistic portion of the Vedas and gives duty prominence over divinity. By doing your duties properly, you achieve spiritual benefit and merit. They are looking for punya. They are not looking for moksha in that sense, strictly speaking. So they are from them, merit comes from proper performance of duty. And the Vedanta, if Mimamsa is called the Purva Mimamsa, Vedanta is also sometimes called as the Uttar Mimamsa, because both are reading Vedas, but different section of the Vedas. The Mimamsas are focusing on the earlier part of the Vedas, which are the ritualistic part, and Vedanta is focusing on the later part of the Vedas, which are the Upanishads, and therefore more contemplative. So their focus is what is the ultimate reality? How can I understand the ultimate reality? Through the Upanishads. This is the central question of Vedanta school. And through Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, Vedanta Sutra, we try to understand the ultimate reality. And once you understand the relationship between Jiva, Prakriti, and Ishvara, you will attain liberation. This is their approach. So these are, don't think of this as unrelated philosophy. There are different approaches to the ultimate reality. Any questions? Did you find it interesting?
Yes, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, I had one question if I can ask.
Sure, please.
Prabhuji, you mentioned only yoga is providing what to say, practice, but bhakti, doesn't it come within the Vedanta school and it has
Yeah.
9 limbs and everything?
Yeah, correct. I mean, what I was trying to say is, while for other 5 are philosophies, yoga is a method. So Vedanta is also a philosophy. It's Sambandha Gyan, essentially. And then the Abhideya is Bhakti and the Prayojana is Prema. But still it is presenting a philosophy. The Sambandha Gyan is the philosophy. So all 5 schools present philosophy. Yoga of itself it does not have a philosophy. It borrows the metaphysics from Sankhya. That is the point I was trying to make. The
Got
yoga
it.
school is a discipline. It's a method.
Yes, Prabhuji. And Prabhuji,
So
I had
their approach is, you follow this 8 steps and you don't need to rely on Pratyaksha, Anuman, Shabda. Follow this method and get your own experience. Go to the forest, go into Dhyan, Dharana, Dhyan, Samadhi. You will experience your own consciousness. That is the experience you don't need any evidence for. This is the approach of the yoga path. कि आप अपना consciousness इतना fine tune कर लो that you can actually perceive ultimate reality. So they say, yeah, it is possible by experience. Can you deny that? There have been in generations of sages who go into these deep practices and experience the divine. So this is a valid process.
understood, Prabhuji. I also had one more question, Prabhuji. Regarding the Mimamsa, I was just feeling like suppose we say I'm trying to refine my understanding of what we mean by offenseless. We started our class with that, and then it just feels to me like if we say, okay, just chant offenselessly, and then we will get the result of prema. Is this little bit like the Mimamsa thing that okay, just do the thing properly, and the result will come?
Yeah, that's a good thought. But when we say offenseless chanting, what offenses are we talking about? It's my mistake also that I didn't specify. We are talking of Nam Aparad. Yeah, and we, before starting chanting, we recite these 10 Nam Aparads. So if you look at what are these Nam Aparads, they are basically indicators of us having complete faith in the holy name, in Vaishnavas, in Guru, in Shastra. That's all. So it is an indicator of our Dhrida Shraddha, nothing else. So where is our faith? In divinity. Where is the Mimamsaka's faith? In duty. So
Oh,
where is your faith? What are
very
you prioritizing?
wonderful, Prabhuji. Okay, got it, got it. Yes, Prabhuji.
Yeah. So they say, the duty kar rahe ho na? Don't worry. The devatas will be forced to give you the result. That's the attitude. So yeah, if you see the 10 offenses to the holy name, it's about devotees and Vishnu, Guru, scriptures, holy name, and yeah, holy name again. So you have intrinsic faith in Guru, Shastra, Vaishnava, Guru, Sadhu, Shastra, holy name. This is the 10 offenses or namaparad that we have to be careful of. And if we are able to observe these 10 offenses, observe that we don't commit these 10 offenses, then we are not committing namaparad. That is the meaning of offenseless chanting. It's not, there's aparad means what? Aparad means these aparads. That when what is sacred, you take to be mundane. Guru is sacred, Shastra is sacred, Vishnu is sacred, holy name is sacred. You are taking them to be mundane. And what is mundane, you are taking to be sacred or mistaking to be sacred. That is aparad. That is the essence of aparad. जो sacred है उसको mundane बना दिया और जो mundane है उसको sacred बना दिया. That is the aparad buddhi. Is that okay?
Yes, Prabhuji, thank you. It was very clear.
Any other questions? So you'll also be interested. I might, maybe not today, but in a separate discussion, how all of these other systems do not need God to explain their philosophy. Why is Srila Prabhupada saying that only Vedanta is where theism is fully present? So, all of the other five, they don't require any conception of God. That is little detailed discussion and we are going over time. So we'll take it up next time. But the point is they are not theistic. I mean, this makes sense how they can be Vedic but still be atheistic. So astic means what are they having faith in? Astic means not that you accept God. Astic means you are accepting Vedas. There is a difference. So they are called Astic schools because they accept Vedas. But how many accept God? Nyaya doesn't accept God in its early forms. Yeah, later forms of Nyaya have introduced some theism. Even same with Vaisheshik, they don't have any conception of God in its classical form. Sankhya is again non-theistic. Yoga is a little theistic that it introduces the concept of Ishvara, but not the Ishvara in the same way as we talk of Bhagwan. They just say that you have to go beyond karma and avidya. So there is one special Purusha who is beyond karma and ignorance, avidya. That is Ishvara. So they just have a concept of a special Purusha, not that you have to express devotion to that. So even in Mimamsa, so dharma is central, Vedas are central, but God is not necessary. Your rituals are efficient, your rituals are effective, you don't need God. You find it interesting? I think, so this is how we can understand these six systems. And there's so much literature if you're interested to read more. Okay,
Very
thank
clear.
you. Yes.
Dandvat Pranam Prabhuji.
Yes,
Now
Mataji.
I have one question here. Now, when you are saying that rituals are important, if you are doing your duty, then means God means there should be some personality whom they are trying to perform these rituals, no? So
There are
then,
some personalities who we are trying to perform these rituals for.
yes,
Yeah.
that means like we are saying, we have to satisfy Lord Vishnu, and that is why we have to perform the rituals,
Yeah.
please him. So here,
Correct.
when they are talking about the rituals, then what is the need to do the rituals? No, it is like that. Now their whole philosophy, if they are performing the rituals,
Yeah.
what does it stand for then?
Very good question. So, you come from a devotional background, therefore you have been introduced to this idea of it is to please Vishnu. That is why you're doing yajna, right? But if you see where the actual phrase yajna hi Vishnu comes, it is actually referring, it is supporting Karma Mimamsa. It is saying Yajna ही विष्णु है. Prabhupada says यज्ञ ही विष्णु है इसलिए विष्णु की सेवा करो. They use it in a way to say यज्ञ किया ना वो ही विष्णु है. अलग से विष्णु को, you don't need to worship a separate Vishnu. So that's how they see it. So they are more concerned about yajna, less concerned about Vishnu. We are more concerned about Vishnu and less concerned about yajna. So that is the difference in flavor.
Okay. Yes, Prabhuji.
Does it make sense?
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you for your patience. Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Dhanwad.